Mental illnesses, also called mental health disorders, refers to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illnesses include depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. In today's generation, mental health is on the forefront of people's minds, considering such illnesses are on a rise, especially among teens. Psychologists and psychiatrists made strides in the advancement of medicine and treatment for those who suffer. Nevertheless, to get to the place we are at today, we had to go through difficult times like those in the 19th century. In the 19th century, mental illnesses was a sign of madness. Those who showed signs of melancholy, willfulness, and possessions of evil spirits got thrown into mental hospitals. These patients received horrible treatment, thrown out of society, and left to die. In contrast to the horrific treatment of the mad, the Romantic period has emerged in literature. The Romantic literature focuses on the individual, has a respect for nature, and celebrates the common man. So let's see how patients were treated and how writers incorporated this into their writing. Before asylums, people with mental illnesses or learning disabilities were cared for almost entirely by their families. Those who could not be kept at a home often ended up impoverished, begging for food and shelter. By the 1700s, there were a few private institutions where wealthy families could send their mad relatives to be cared for with discretion. The poor had to rely on local parishes, which sometimes provided charity-funded asylums, and some ended up in workhouses or prisons. Some reasons why people entered into an asylum was drunkenness and sexual overindulgence, having deviant sexuality, which was their phrase for homosexuality, mania, dementia, melancholy, relapsing mania, hysteria, epilepsy, and idiocy. Early forms of treatment was physical restraints. The function of mental institutions was simply to keep inmates in custody. The keepers were little more than guards, and it was uncommon for patients to be kept in chains or other restraints for most of the time. The extent to which restraints were used varied from asylum to another, but they were accepted as a necessary part of healthcare. But as time progressed, a new approach for treatment came about, the moral treatment system. The idea behind the moral treatment system was that the environment had a major effect on the patient's well-being. Doctors realized that the patients were mentally ill and not criminals. They did away with the use of shackles and straitjackets and focused on the beautification of the living environment, using furniture and artworks that were aesthetically pleasing, making the asylum interior resemble a home, and was a primary goal of this movement, as it sought to calm lunatics rather than antagonize them. The system relied on rules and constant supervision enforced by simple rewards and punishments. Physical restraints could be used to modify behavior if used sparingly as punishments. Frankenstein was written by Mary Shelley. Shelley focuses on Victor, the common man that is fixated on creating new life. One common feature among Romantic writers is that they despise advancement of technology and the industrial movement. Shelley portrays a story where the advancement of technology can be a detriment on the mind and therefore cause one to be depressed. Victor creates a monster that he loves, however, the monster kills the people Victor loves, such as his father, brother, and fiancé. The monster is destroying the world around him, and eventually Victor is overwhelmed with sadness. Victor ends up entering in an asylum due to his severe case of melancholy. Shelley incorporates the rise of mental illness while including romantic elements such as focusing on the individual in her novel. The Ruined Cottage is a poem written by William Wordsworth. The Ruined Cottage is the epitome of what romantic literature encompasses, elements of nature and focusing on the individual. Wordsworth demonstrates how the advancement of technology can allow the common man to enter into poverty and result in mental illness. The poem follows Margaret, a tailor that lives in rural England. As factories are growing, they are sealing her business. Money is getting tight and her family struggles severely. Her husband goes away to support her family and unfortunately does not come back for the remainder of the poem. Her mind goes away because of the sadness of her husband not coming home and loneliness. Wordsworth symbolizes how her house is deteriorating as well as her state of mind. The house is showing wear and tear and rust, and Wordsworth focuses on the nature around her also going bad. In conclusion, Margaret faces severe poverty and suffers from depression with the rise of the industrial movement. Wordsworth utilizes romantic elements of nature with the loss of her mind, focuses on the individual and showing how Margaret deals with the situation given at hand.